The air is thick with lilies and candle smoke. The low hum of whispered condolences fills the dimly lit chapel. Margaret Walsh, 67, in a simple black dress, sits rigid in the front row, her hands clutched around a damp handkerchief. Her face is pale, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. She has cried all night. Now she is hollow. The casket sits at the front, gleaming mahogany, closed. A framed photo of her son, Danny, 35, smiling, alive, whole, rests on top with a bouquet of white roses. Mourners file past, some pausing to touch the casket, others whispering their sympathies. Margaret nods at each one, mechanical, polite. Beside her, Stephanie, the widow, collapses dramatically against Margaret's arm. Her makeup is immaculate despite her tears, every gesture a performance. Stephanie, voice trembling for the 10th time. I couldn't let anyone see him. Be accident. It was too much. His poor body. Margaret stiffens but nods. She bites her tongue. Her phone buzzes in her purse. She hesitates, then slips it out under the hymn book. On the screen, a text message. Mom, I'm alive. That's not me in the coffin. Her heart stops. Her breath catches. Another message immediately after. If you're reading this, don't trust Stephanie. Meet me tomorrow, Old Miller Farm, 3 p.m. Come alone. Her knees buckle. The room tilts. She grips the pew to stay upright. Stephanie notices, gripping her hand tightly. Stephanie whispering. Thank you for being so strong, Margaret. Danny would be proud of you. Margaret forces herself to smile, nodding through tears. Margaret VO to herself. Stay calm, don't let her see, don't let her know. She shoves the phone back in her purse, her fingers trembling. External funeral parlor parking lot, minutes later. Margaret steps outside for air. The sky is gray, heavy with rain clouds. She leans against her old Honda, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She pulls the phone back out, typing with shaking fingers. Where are you? What's happening? A reply flashes instantly. Can't explain. They're watching. Don't trust her. Just come tomorrow. Margaret grips the phone so tightly her knuckles whiten. She looks back through the parlor window. Stephanie stands at the casket, her hand pressed theatrically against the lid, her shoulders shaking with sobs that seem too controlled, too perfect. Internal. Margaret's bedroom that night. The house is quiet. Margaret sits on the edge of her bed in the dark, still in her funeral dress, staring at her phone. Every creak of the house makes her jump. Every car passing outside makes her pull the curtain back nervously. She replays the day in her head. Stephanie's perfect performance, the way she handled the funeral arrangements, the insistence on a closed casket. Her gut twists. She pulls out an old photo album, flipping through pictures of Danny, his first day at school, his graduation, his wedding day. She whispers, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. You're alive. You have to be. External dirt road, next day, 2:55 p.m. Margaret drives her battered Honda down a winding dirt road lined with overgrown trees. The old Miller farm comes into view. A weathered barn, a crumbling farmhouse, windows dark. Her heart pounds. She slows the car, scanning the field. At first, silence. Then, movement. From behind the barn, a figure emerges. Broad shoulders, familiar walk, nervous glances over his shoulder. Danny. Her hands fly to her mouth. Tears blur her vision. She throws the car in park, stumbling out. He runs to her, pulling her into a desperate hug. Danny. Mom. Oh God, I'm so sorry. Margaret clutches his face, touching his hair, his cheeks, as though to prove he's real. Margaret, you're alive. You're alive. Danny. I had to do it. I had to fake it. To keep you safe. From what? From who? Danny looks over his shoulder, his voice low, urgent. From Stephanie and the people she's working with. Mom, they want me dead for real. The weight of his words sinks in.
Margaret's relief curdles into terror. The nightmare has only just begun.
Wind scrapes through yellowed grass. A corrugated sheet clatters against the side of the barn. Danny leads Margaret around to the lee of the structure, where an old pickup truck sits half-hidden beneath a sun-bleached tarp. He checks the tree line, then gestures her inside the cab. Inside pickup truck, continuous. Dust floats in the slanted light. Danny locks the doors. His hands tremble as he starts talking too fast, like words are a dam finally breaking. "It wasn't an accident, Mom. They were going to stage one. I heard Stephanie planning it. She didn't know I was home." Margaret studies him. New lines cut across his face, a haggardness that wasn't there months ago. "Start at the beginning." He nods, swallowing. "You remember Grandpa Joe's land in Colorado?" A beat. Margaret frowns. 40 acres of rocks and sagebrush I've been paying taxes on for 30 years. There is natural gas under it. A lot. Survey said multi-field potential. Tens of millions. Margaret blinks. The air seems to thin. How would Stephanie know that? She had it surveyed months ago without telling us. She knew before I did. He drags a hand across his jaw, ashamed. She pitched these private loans, bridge capital for a development deal in Florida, double-digit returns. At first, it paid out. Then it didn't. The money we borrowed wasn't from banks. It was from men who don't accept apologies. Margaret's gaze hardens, a steel she used to keep classrooms in line. How deep? 2.5. Principal, not counting interest and penalties. The number lands between them like a thrown brick. She steered you to them, or she was already with them. I can't tell which came first. Outside Old Miller Farm, later. They stand in the shadow of the barn. Danny points toward the farmhouse. I overheard her call. She said, and she used these words, "We do the funeral on Thursday, closed casket, I'll control the mother." The way she said the mother, like I was an item and you were a task. Margaret's fingers curl against her palm until her knuckles pale. What about the body? Wincing. There isn't one. I stuffed the casket with sandbags and a mechanic's suit I burned with diesel. The coroner, let's just say, someone owed someone a favor. They wanted me dead on paper. I made sure the paper was the only place I died. He searches her face, braced for judgment. Margaret only exhales, steadying. You saved your life, and you kept them from weaponizing my grief. A soft, fierce pride edges her voice. I sent the text the second I was clear. I didn't want you to see that casket if I could help it. You were my student long before you were theirs. She squeezes his hand. What's their plan for the land? They forged paperwork, made it look like you transferred the property to me for estate planning. Then they had me sign a beneficiary schedule that puts everything in Stephanie's name if I died. After my funeral, she gets the mineral rights clean. They flip the lease to a shell company. We disappear. We don't disappear. We make them visible. Her mind is already moving, indexing, outlining, choosing verbs. A buzz from Margaret's phone. She checks the screen. Stephanie. Can you come by tonight? We need to handle Danny's papers. Margaret's eyes meet Danny's. A plan begins to take shape between them, wordless but alive. External suburban street, evening. Margaret's Honda pulls up to Danny and Stephanie's two-story. Porch lights glow, wind chimes tinkle. A life staged for normal. Internal, entryway, kitchen, night.
Stephanie opens the door with red-rimmed eyes and a practiced tremble. She hugs Margaret long, maybe to feel for wires, maybe to smother her in performance. Thank you for coming. I know it's so much. We do what we must. The kitchen table is a still life of legal forms: power of attorney, transfer of mineral rights, a neat stack of post-death asset assignments. A pen gleams on a leather pad. Stephanie gestures Margaret to sit. She slides forward a familiar-looking document. This will simplify everything, reduce tax exposure, streamline probate. Danny wanted it this way. Margaret opens her purse, places reading glasses on the bridge of her nose, calm, unhurried. She lets the silence stretch until it becomes Stephanie's problem. Why is there a valuation field? 12 million? A microflicker runs across Stephanie's eyes, gone in a blink. Placeholder, standard for insurance underwriting. Margaret tips her water glass. A cold sheet spills across the papers. Oh, dear me. She reaches for napkins, fluttering. While Stephanie turns to grab towels from the sink, Margaret's phone lifts, tilts, snap, snap, photos of each soaked page. Stephanie returns, smile stretched thin. No harm done. I have copies. She produces a fresh, crisp power of attorney. This one even more generous, more absolute. All you need to do is sign here, here, and initial here. Margaret holds the pen, then lowers it. She lets a note of elderly confusion bleed into her tone, an intentional miscalculation. At my age, I find a lawyer comforting. I'd like mine to look first. The room temperature drops a degree. The mask slips a shade. We're family, Margaret. You can trust me. Of course, which is why a quick review won't offend you. Stephanie's mouth thins. A beat, then the smile returns. Too many teeth. Tomorrow, then. First thing. Tomorrow. Margaret rises. Stephanie moves with her, guiding, her palm light on Margaret's elbow like she's leading an elderly parishioner back to a pew. Soft. You've been so brave. I'm a teacher. Bravery is often just preparation that looks like luck. Their eyes hook for a fraction, two predators recognizing each other. Outside Margaret's house, night. The front door swings inward. Lamps already glow. Internal, living room, continuous. 3 men wait like bad weather. David, 50s, unremarkable face with a bureaucrat's patience, sits in the recliner that belonged to Margaret's late husband. Len, 30s, gym-built and restless, leans against the mantel, flipping a brass coin over his knuckles. Oscar, 40s, neat beard, accountant's eyes, stands in the window's reflection like a shadow that learned math. Margaret sets her purse down with deliberate care. I don't recall He pulls his phone, swipes, turns the screen to her. A grainy, long-lens photo, Danny crossing the dirt behind the Miller barn. Alive tends to complicate estates. The picture punches air from Margaret's lungs, but her face is stone. So you broke into a widow's house. We entered. Your backdoor lock is performative. You should fix that. He leans forward, elbows on knees. Here's the path out. Tomorrow evening, Stephanie brings you documents. You sign the property over. We forgive the debt. Your son resumes breathing in public. Happy ending. And if I decline? David sits back. The smile doesn't change. The eyes curdle. You won't. Oscar checks his watch, gives David a tiny nod. Timing matters to men who schedule threats. 24 hours. After that, the conversation narrows. They file out as politely as parishioners. The door clicks shut. Margaret stands alone in her quiet living room, every object suddenly feeling like evidence of a life someone tried to erase. She breathes. Once. Twice. Then she moves. Purse, keys, coat, already dialing. Interior, pickup truck, old Miller farm, late night. Danny paces outside the barn, hair wild, eyes rimmed with fear. He climbs into the truck the moment Margaret pulls alongside. What happened? They were in my house. They have a photo of you at the farm. They want the land tomorrow night. How? Assume every obvious place isn't safe. We play like they hear everything and miss only what we hide in plain sight. He sinks, guilty crushing him from the inside. This is my fault. Fault is a teacher with cruel timing. Will take the lesson without the shame. She takes his hand like she did when he was 6 and bleeding from a knee. Margaret, do you trust me? With my life. Good, because I'm about to spend it very carefully. Her phone lights up, Marcus Chen in her contacts list. She stares at the name, remembering a skinny kid who tried to plagiarize an essay on Macbeth and ended up falling in love with the law. Margaret, tomorrow we stop playing defense. She hits call. Interior law office, day, flash cuts. A glass-walled corner office, sun dragging across polished wood. Margaret sits opposite Marcus Chen, 40s, immaculate suit, eyes that still crinkled the way they did when a teacher made him laugh in 12th grade. Quick flashes like the montage of a heist plan being written in law. Marcus scribbles clauses on a yellow pad. A paralegal prints a stack of dense trust documents. Margaret points to a paragraph, shakes her head, Marcus revises, they both nod. A diagram on a legal pad, you, through, trust, through, trustee, Stephanie, with a hidden box labeled, mandated disclosure, Fed jurisdiction. A second diagram, signature equals admission, trigger equals report. Marcus staples the last packet, slides a leather briefcase across the desk to Margaret. If they sign this, they confess. They don't know they confessed, and the minute they file it, federal bells start ringing. If. Marcus closed harder mouths with nothing but a raised eyebrow. You'll be fine. He squeezes her shoulder, a former student giving his teacher back a little of what she gave him. Interior, Margaret's kitchen, late afternoon. Tea kettle hissing, Margaret spreads Marcus's documents across the table and rereads each page like it's a lesson plan before a hostile class. She practices the lines she'll say and the silences she'll hold. Her phone buzzes. Text, Stephanie. Paper's ready. I'll come by at 8. She types with measured frailty. Could we meet at the Riverside Diner? The house feels too quiet. 3 dots, then fine. Margaret stands in her tidy kitchen, listening to the house breathe, to the past lives in these walls hum like a distant chorus. She moves through rooms, turning off lights until only one lamp glows, an island of gold in the gathering blue. She pauses at a framed photo, young Danny on a fishing dock, gap-toothed grin, sun in his hair. She touches the glass. They think you're my weakness. They don't understand you're my weapon. Exterior, Riverside Diner, night. Neon flickers, trucks nose into spaces. Inside, Sheriff Tom Bradley eats meatloaf at his usual table. Janet Morrison, the county prosecutor, laughs with a book club at the corner. It's small-town ritual, predictable, sturdy. Margaret steps in, briefcase in hand, and claims the back corner booth with a view of everyone. She orders coffee. Waits. The door jangles. Stephanie enters, with David at her shoulder. The performance is gone now. Her grief faces in a purse for later. She is business. They slide into the booth. David's gaze sweeps the room, cataloging threats like barcodes. His eyes linger a beat on the sheriff, on the exit, on Margaret's hands. Stephanie, let's just get this done. Margaret slides aside the forgery packet Stephanie brought and replaces it with Marcus's stack. I prefer my lawyer's version. It protects everyone. David, lips lift, half amusement, half warning. Marcus Chen, thorough man. I learned from an excellent curriculum. She sips coffee, lets them read. The document forest is dense. Each tree hides a trap door. Stephanie frowns at the language. David scans faster, slower when he senses hooks. Stephanie, this clause, trustee to promptly disclose any prior irregularities to federal authorities. Why is that here? HA, we've got something complicated here. Standard compliance for high-value mineral transfers. You wouldn't want ancient paperwork to snarl a modern windfall. Stephanie trades a quick look with David. He keeps his voice even. And why the urgency? Quarterly reporting. If we cross midnight, we fall into a different oversight window. Months of delay. I'm old. I avoid winter bureaucracy. David checks the wall clock. 7:41. He thumbs his phone. No lawyer will answer warmly at this hour for the kind of clients who need answers at this hour. He draws a breath. Decides. Fine, we'll sign now, but we take the originals. Of course. Pens uncap, paper whispers. Their signatures luke and stab and anchor onto all the tiny bombs they can't see. Margaret tucks the stack into her briefcase, rises with a polite smile. Excuse me one moment. The ladies' room and my nerves are old acquaintances. She carries the briefcase not to the restroom, but to Sheriff Bradley's table, sets it down softly. Tom, multiple felonies, signed. Sheriff Bradley looks at her, at the briefcase, at the booth where Stephanie laughs thinly at something David mutters. He nods once, the kind of nod that move people and cars. Stay within sight. Margaret returns to the booth, all grandmotherly apology and cardiganed poise. Where do we go from here? David palms the signed stack like it's a passport. We meet our legal team tonight, Industrial Boulevard. Stephanie, we'll text when everything is recorded. I'll try to rest. She stands. Stephanie hugs her. One last counterfeit intimacy. Stephanie murmur, You did the right thing. Margaret breathes in Stephanie's expensive perfume and says, very softly, So did you. Stephanie pulls back, eyes narrowing. Did she hear something? Understand something? The moment passes. They leave with the documents that will detonate their lives. Margaret watches them go, then sits, palms flat on cool formica, counting her heartbeats until she is steady enough to stand and walk to the door like any other woman paying for coffee. Outside, she dials with precise fingers. Danny, part 1 is done. Stay put. Whatever happens next, do not move. She ends the call and looks back through the window. Sheriff Bradley is already standing, bill on the table, lips thinning into the line of a man about to do his job. Margaret steps into the night air, cooler now, tasting like rain and reckoning. The warehouse district sprawls like a skeleton of forgotten industry. Corrugated tin walls rusting, sodium lamps flickering in sickly orange. Wind rattles chain-link fences. Unmarked SUVs idle at intervals, lights off. Their silhouettes give them away only if you're searching. Federal agents, patient and coiled. On a ridge above, Margaret's Honda Civic sits dark. Inside, Margaret grips a pair of binoculars. Her breath fogs the glass as she adjusts focus. Margaret V.O. 42 years teaching teenagers taught me one thing. Let them think they're winning. They'll show you everything. Exterior. Warehouse, front lot, 10:47 p.m. 3 vehicles roll in. First, Stephanie's Lexus, gleaming even under dim lights. David rides shotgun, his face stone. Second, a black Suburban, the 2 men who'd invaded Margaret's living room. Third, a silver Mercedes. Strangers. Older, colder, the kind of people who never waste words. They climb out, each scanning the shadows. Stephanie clutches the briefcase like a prize. She isn't playing widow anymore. She's electric, hungry, triumphant. Interior, warehouse, continuous. The cavernous interior echoes with each step. A folding table waits in the center, lit by a single halogen work lamp. Concrete smells damp, metallic. Stephanie drops the briefcase onto the table, flicks the locks, spreads out the signed documents like tarot cards. Stephanie. It's done. She signed everything. The land is ours. The Mercedes pair exchange a glance. Approval muted, clinical. One of them, Mr. Harris, 60s, bespoke suit, accent smoothed by wealth, nods once. Efficient. You've earned your cut. David pours coffee from a thermos, steady as if this were a boardroom. The others lean in, scanning Margaret's trap disguised as paperwork. Exterior, ridge, same time. Through binoculars, Margaret watches them bend over the table. Her pulse races. She whispers into her phone. Tom, they're in. All of them. Below, black-clad figures emerge from shadows. Tactical vests. FBI stenciled in yellow. They move like liquid, circling the warehouse. Interior, warehouse, continuous. Len, the younger enforcer, runs a finger down the clauses. He frowns. What's this line? Trustee acknowledges prior irregularities. David snatches the page, scanning quickly. Stephanie stiffens. David, standard compliance. Chen's thorough. Stephanie eyes him. Something unsettles her. Stephanie, maybe we should hold until our attorney, Mr. Harris. Time is money. We move forward. One by one they sign, ink binding them to confessions they don't understand. Exterior warehouse seconds later. Floodlights blaze on, harsh, white. Sirens wail, swallowing the night. A megaphone booms. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The building is surrounded. Exit with your hands visible. Chaos detonates inside. Interior, warehouse, continuous. Paper scatter, coffee spills. Len curses, reaching for a weapon. David slams his hand down on the table. Don't be stupid! Stephanie freezes. Mask gone. For the first time, panic cracks her poise. The doors slam open, agents storm in, rifles raised, shout sounds synchronized. FBI agent, on the ground, now! One by one, they drop. Harris and his partner kneel calmly, hands behind heads. The enforcers sprawl flat, faces pressed to concrete. Stephanie clutches her wrists behind her back, mascara streaking, finally real. Ext ridge, same time. Through binoculars, Margaret watches handcuffs flash silver. Her shoulders sag, tension uncoiling after days of terror. Her phone buzzes. Sheriff Bradley's voice is firm, steady. Sheriff Bradley, VO. It's over, Margaret. We've got 'em. And more. Files in their cars, ledgers, names. They'll be talking for years. Margaret closes her eyes. The tears now are quiet, private, victorious. Into Margaret's house, kitchen, later that night. The kettle whistles. Margaret pours tea with hands that still shake. Across the table, Danny sits, his eyes rimmed, but alive, whole. He hasn't stopped staring at her since she walked in the door. Danny, you did this. You saved me. Margaret sets the mug before him. Her smile is weary, proud. No, sweetheart, we saved each other. He takes her hand. Silence stretches. Safe silence. The kind they thought they'd lost forever. Into FDI office, days later. Evidence boards crowd the walls. Photos of forged deeds, bank transfers, elderly victims' faces pinned like casualties. A federal prosecutor addresses Margaret, recorder blinking red. Prosecutor, your testimony, combined with the documents you provided, forms the backbone of our case. 23 felonies across 6 states. Estimated 40 million recovered. Margaret nods, calm, composed, every inch the teacher giving her final lesson. Then it was worth it. Into Margaret's living room, night. Quiet. A lamp glows warm. Margaret sits alone, tea cooling beside her. The house feels different, no longer haunted, but claimed. She looks at a photo of young Danny again, smiles faintly. Margaret, VO. For decades, they thought my kindness meant weakness. They mistook patience for frailty. They forgot. Underestimation is its own weapon. She leans back, closes her eyes. For the first time in weeks, she sleeps without fear. The marble corridors hum with reporters, cameras flashing like lightning. Stephanie, shackled at wrists and ankles, is marched past. Her once perfect hair is limp, her makeup smeared, but her eyes still burn. calculating, venomous. Margaret stands back, unnoticed among the crowd. She watches Stephanie disappear behind heavy double doors. Margaret VO. For years, I told myself she was just difficult, that love made Danny blind and patience made me complicit. Now, stripped of her stage, she's only what she always was, a predator caught in daylight. Int Margaret's kitchen, night. Rain lashes the windows. Danny sits at the table, head in his hands. He hasn't touched his food. Margaret places a cup of tea before him. Her hands are steady. His aren't. Danny. 3 years, Mom. 3 years with her. Sharing a bed, building a life, and I never saw it. Margaret sits opposite him, patient, present. You saw what she wanted you to see. That isn't foolishness, it's humanity. He looks up, eyes raw. What if I can't trust anyone again? Margaret reaches across, covers his trembling hands with her own. Then start by trusting yourself. Trust your instincts, your questions, and when you doubt, remember this. When it mattered, you saw clearly enough to save us both. Int prison visitation room, 2 weeks later. A stark room, plastic chairs bolted to the floor. Margaret sits across from Stephanie, separated by plexiglass. Stephanie's orange jumpsuit fits her like a mockery of the couture she used to wear. She picks up the phone. Her smile is snake-thin. So, the teacher thinks she's clever. You know this isn't over. People like me, we don't stay buried. Margaret lifts the phone calmly. You mistook my silence for ignorance, my age for fragility, my kindness for weakness. You won't make that mistake again. Stephanie leans closer, eyes glittering. He'll never love anyone without thinking of me. Margaret's gaze hardens, unblinking. No, he'll love better, because he'll know what poison tastes like. She hangs up the phone. Stephanie's smirk falters as Margaret walks away, posture straight, victorious, without theatrics. Ent library, day. Margaret stands before a small group of seniors, her hands folded gently. A community meeting. She speaks clearly, confidently. Scammers don't want your money. They want your trust, your silence, your self-doubt. They script their lies, but you, she gestures to them, you can rewrite the ending. The seniors nod, scribbling notes. A woman in the back wipes away a tear. Sheriff Bradley watches from the door, arms folded, proud.
Wind moves through endless fields of sage. The mountains glow in dying light. Margaret and Danny stand on the ridge. The survey markers dot the ground, promise of millions below their feet. Danny stuffs his hands in his jacket pockets, uneasy. All this time I thought it was worthless, a burden you carried for Grandpa. Margaret smiles faintly, looking out at the horizon. Value isn't always visible. Sometimes it's buried deep, waiting for the right moment to be unearthed. They stand in silence as the sun dips, golden fading to indigo. Interior Margaret's house, living room, night. A warm lamp glow. Margaret knits quietly. Danny dozes on the couch, safe for the first time in months. On the coffee table lies a thick folder, U.S. versus Stephanie Walsh et al., stamped evidence. Margaret glances at it, then at her son sleeping peacefully. She exhales, finally allowing herself to feel relief. Not cautious, not fleeting, real. Margaret VO. The funeral was fake, but the resurrection was ours. She sets down her knitting, leans back, and lets the quiet hold her. The room buzzes with tension. A dozen elderly victims sit in the gallery, hands clasped, eyes wet. On the defense bench,
Stephanie and her co-conspirators, David, Harris, the enforcers, sit shackled. Suits traded for jumpsuits. Margaret takes the stand. Her posture is straight, her voice clear, unwavering. Margaret, they targeted my family. They tried to bury my son alive, on paper and in memory. But they underestimated the wrong woman. Every word lands heavy, final. Stephanie glares, but Margaret doesn't look back at her. She looks at the victims in the gallery. Margaret continued, "We cannot choose what others try to steal from us, but we can choose what we protect and how fiercely we fight for it." The prosecutor nods. The judge leans forward. Justice feels tangible, close. Interior hallway outside courtroom, later. Margaret steps into the corridor. Reporters swarm, microphones jabbing. She raises a hand, not flustered, not afraid. "My story isn't unique. There are thousands like me. We silence ourselves because we think we're too old, too naive, too small to fight. That ends here." Camera flashes burst. Behind her, Danny emerges, protective but proud. Exterior, Colorado land, twilight. Months later. The drilling rigs have not arrived yet, but the land breathes with promise. Sagebrush sways, mountains loom like guardians. Danny drives fence posts into the soil. Sweat streaks his shirt. Margaret paints them white. They work in rhythm, rebuilding together. He pauses, wiping his brow, watching her. "You ever think, maybe all this happens so we'd finally see what we're standing on?" Margaret guests, her brush down, gazes at the horizon. Every grave, real or fake, teaches us to live better. They share a quiet smile, unspoken forgiveness passing between them. Interior, prison, visitation, night. Stephanie sits alone. The room echoes with other conversations. She waits, staring at the door, expecting Margaret again. But no one comes. Her smile fades. Her hands fidget. For the first time, she is not performing. She is just alone. Interior, Margaret's house, night. Margaret hosts neighbors around her dining table. Retirees, widows, a few young families. She hands out pamphlets, Protecting Your Legacy, How to Spot Fraud. She listens as others share their stories, their fears. She nods, encourages, teaches. Her living room, once invaded by predators, is now a sanctuary of voices refusing silence. Margaret Vio. They thought I'd be their victim. Instead, I became their ending.
Margaret visits her husband's grave. She kneels, brushing leaves from the stone. "We almost lost him, Joe, but he's still here. So am I." She presses her palm against the stone, eyes bright with quiet strength. Exterior, Colorado land, sunset. Final image. Margaret and Danny stand side by side on the ridge. The sky burns with gold and crimson. The future is uncertain, but vast, theirs to claim. Margaret's hand finds her son's. He squeezes back, alive, present, no longer lost. Margaret V.O. The funeral was their lie. The resurrection is our truth. And it's only the beginning.